From the Telesur headquarters in Caracas, Venezuela, welcome back to From the South. I am Luis de Jesus. Let's take a look at our headlines. Tropical storm Laura moves near Cuba after leaving at least 7 people dead in Haiti and floodings in the Dominican Republic. Military junta in Mali has proposed a 3-year transitional government in talks with the Economic Community of West African States. And New Zealand justice starts the sentencing hearing for white supremacists who committed massive murder in March 2019. And we'll start right away with the news. Stay with us. And Tropical Storm Laura has intensified in the last hours as it moves near the eastern south coast of Cuba. In a late Sunday report, the Forecasting Center at the Meteorology Institute of Cuba projected Laura had winds of between 60 and 75 kilometers per hour. This storm has been felt already in the regions of Santiago de Cuba, Holguín, and Granma. Tropical Storm Laura is expected to hit Cuba until Monday night before it enters the Gulf of Mexico. Earlier this weekend, the storm left at least 7 people killed in Haiti while it moved through the Hispaniola.
The majority of the people in Tete de Leão are not safe. This town is destroyed. As you can see, look at the people walking by. The houses are condemned. There are dead people. The merchants have lost their goods. I can't get into my house. My money is inside.
We all sleep on the floor because our house is flooded. Our beds are flooded, and we don't have the money to get new ones. All you see is what we have left in the house.
And President of the United States, Donald Trump, declared on Sunday the state of emergency for Puerto Rico following the passage of Tropical Storm Laura. Meanwhile, the government of the island indicated that the eastern region of the country is recovering from the effects of the storm. On its way near Puerto Rico, Laura left floods and almost 8 inches of rain. And meanwhile, Tropical Storm Marco has been declared a Category 1 hurricane in the Gulf of Mexico. Warnings have been activated for parts of the states of Louisiana and Mississippi in the United States. Evacuation plans in Louisiana town of New Orleans already begun this Sunday, with many of its residents preparing to leave.
It seems to be moving pretty quickly, and it's not that strong, so I'm hoping it's rain event and the power stays on, but it could go off.
So what they're about to experience is probably going to be mostly torrential rain, but not the severity that Katrina did and the damage that it did, because I think they prepared the levees a little better since Katrina, and I pray to God that they have, because I want to see the city saved, always.
Our correspondent in Dominican Republic, Daisy Toussaint, has more details about Hurricane Marco. Let's see.
The Caribbean area has been affected in this cyclone season. The tropical storm Marco has become a hurricane this Sunday when it moved to the southern United States through the Gulf of Mexico. The United States National Hurricane Center confirmed that the data from a hurricane hunting plane of the National Air Force collected winds of maximum 120 km per hour with stronger gusts from Marco. For a storm surge and hurricane force winds were forecast along the U.S. coastline overlooking the Gulf of Mexico. Also, there is Storm Laura, which is currently passing through Cuba to enter to the Gulf of Mexico on Monday night and early Tuesday, where it could become a hurricane. About Tropical Storm Laura and its passage through the Spanish island, it has left 3 deaths in the Dominican Republic and 5 deaths in Haiti, according to the most recent reports. The alert for heavy rains remains in Haiti, Cuba, and Jamaica through Monday, and there is an increasing risk of dangerous impacts from storm surges, winds, and rains along part of the U.S. Gulf Coast in the middle of the week. This information was reported by the National Hurricane Center.
And thank you to Daisy Toussaint for that report. The relatives of the victims of recent massacres in Colombia have received their loved ones' bodies. The South American nation reported 33 murders over the past 11 days, with 17 people being killed in between Friday and Saturday alone. According to the victims' relatives, entire families were killed during last week's surge in violence. They also said the armed groups responsible have given them a deadline to abandon their homes. Citizens and social organizations have expressed outrage at the insecurity those in rural areas live under, as demands continue to grow for the government of Iván Duque to respect and implement the 2016 peace accords.
They took them away alive, and we thought they were alive. But at around 7 in the morning, we found out that the bodies has been left at an abandoned field.
I want the government to help me, because we can't live there anymore. The armed groups told us yesterday that we had until 10 in the morning to leave. We can't be there.
In Colombia, health authorities reported 384 new deaths on Sunday's balance of the COVID-19 pandemic. The country also reported 8,044 new cases of infection. The National Institute of Health pointed out that the number of confirmed cases now surpassed 541,000 in Colombia, while the number of deaths exceeded 17,300. So far, 374,000 patients have recovered. Venezuelan President Nicolás Maduro has denounced attempts by government officials from the United States and Colombia to have him assassinated.
I have been threatened already. Elliot Abrams at the U.S. Congress recently said that Maduro will be eliminated before December. That word, eliminate, in the mouth of a war hawk like Abrams cannot be taken lightly. There is a plan. They have an office just to meddle in Venezuela, and their goal is to put an end to my leadership and what I represent, because I hold the power to bring together all social, political, cultural, and military forces in our nation. The U.S. and the oligarchy in Colombia have decided to assassinate me and to assassinate the other members of our high command. These are extremist groups governing those nations. They are sitting in the White House and in Nariño Palace. The decision was taken a long time ago, and they have already tried more than once. During the attempted coup on April 30th of last year, the plan was to kidnap me, and 2 years ago they tried to kill me with a drone filled with explosives. We captured those behind these attacks, and they told us who was pulling the strings.
And also, Vice President of Venezuela, Delcy Rodriguez, reported 600 new cases of COVID-19 in the last 24 hours. She also informed of 6 new deaths due to the pandemic.
I would like to first of all inform about the occurrence of cases in the last 24 hours in our country. We recorded 546 cases throughout the national territory, 546 cases of community transmission.
In another subject, at least 13 people died of asphyxia in Peru after police shut down an illegal party on Saturday. 120 people were found at a small club in Lima despite the ban on social gatherings and a curfew to curb the spread of COVID-19. According to the police, the partygoers panicked and tried to escape, locking the only exit door, which led to 13 people asphyxiating, while another 3 were left injured. However, witnesses claim police threw tear gas into the club before closing the door, preventing them from exiting. Police have denied using tear gas or any other weapon during the operation. 23 people have been detained for investigations.
We asked the Public Ministry for a rigorous investigation, an exemplary sanction for the owners, and those who have organized this type of event, and unfortunately, it is not the only one. There are many events of this type that are held in Lima and at the national level. Please don't be irresponsible.
I will take now a short break. Join us again in a minute. We'll be right back. In Mali, the ruling military junta proposed to the economic community of West African states the implementation of a transitional government of 3 years led by a military leader. during the second day of negotiations in Bamako between ECOWAS and the military junta responsible for the uprising against President Ibrahim Boubacar Keïta. Local sources reported that the military group expressed its desire to install a military government to manage Mali for 3 years in exchange for the outset President Keïta to return safely to his residence. Meanwhile, the African delegation stated that it remains hopeful to reach an agreement for the liberation of the government's officials who are detained by the raised military faction and also restoring order. Both sides expect negotiations to be concluded on Monday. Doctors in public hospitals in at least 4 districts in Kenya have gone on strike over delayed salaries and a lack of personal protective equipment. In the capital city, Nairobi, where more than 300 doctors are on strike, union officials said the decision to stop working was taken after the government failed to address the workers' concerns, such as a lack of equipment and failure to pay their salaries on time. They added that inadequate medical equipment is putting them at the risk of contracting COVID-19. According to the country's Ministry of Health, at least 838 workers have COVID-19, while 16 have died due to the disease. The COVID-19 pandemic has triggered a wave of massive job cuts in Kenya, forcing some furloughed workers to sell face masks in congested streets and other public areas to earn a living. As the world grapples with the pandemic, Kenya has made it mandatory for members of the public to wear masks while in public spaces. That instruction has caused mask vendors to spring up in every corner across the city. They wait outside malls and other buildings where those seeking entry must wear masks. Other mask hawkers have taken to the roads near the traffic lights where the jam built up. Hundreds of thousands of Kenyans have lost their jobs since the arrival of the infection to the country.
I was working as a security guard, but we were all sent home when the pandemic started.
Nowadays, most people have the masks already, so sales aren't as high as they once were. There isn't much money, as everyone now has a mask.
And a tribal community in western Kenya has sent a compensation claim to the British government over colonial displacement. More than 100,000 people from Talai community are demanding compensation for the land that was forcibly taken away from them to pave way for large tea plantations 80 years ago. This is not the first time these people have called for reparations from the former colonial power, as last year they appealed to the United Nations for an investigation into the same issue. Illegal gold hunters have destroyed one of Sudan's ancient historical sites. The gold hunters destroyed the site known as Jabal Maraqja by using excavators, effectively erasing part of the African country's rich history. Sudanese archaeological artifacts are the oldest in the world, stretching back to 7,000 years ago.
There is a lot of attempts to attack archaeological sites. So this attack is a strong coup because this site is a rare site that contained a lot of useful information for research on the history of Sudan.
And in Libya, renegade military commander Khalifa Haftar has dismissed a ceasefire announced by the UN-backed Government of National Accord as just propaganda written in a foreign capital. Haftar's spokesperson told journalists on Sunday night that the ceasefire proposal represents nothing but throwing dust in eyes and deceiving the local and international public. He accused the Tripoli-based GNA of using the proposal to hide their plans to attack the strategic city of Sirte. Fayez Sarraj, head of the Tripoli government, on Friday announced a ceasefire to halt the war has devastated the country. And also, one of the militia groups of the Democratic Republic of Congo has signed a ceasefire agreement with the government. The group known as Cooperative for the Development of Congo, which recently was accused of killing of 19 civilians in attacks on 3 villages in Ituri province in the country's northeastern region, agreed to cease hostilities after negotiations with President Felix Tshisekedi. The talks were mediated by a group of former warlords.
We are stopping with the atrocities, as the head of state says, and we're ready to grasp this outstretched hand, which is why we tell our people to first respect this process, to be calm while we move forward.
South African President Cyril Ramaphosa has called on the ruling party, the African National Congress, to rein in corruption. In a letter written to the NSC, Ramaphosa urged the party to implement anti-corruption resolutions made during the 54th National Conference. He has also called on all party members accused of corrupt practices to exculpate themselves to the Integrity Commission immediately or face disciplinary action. Party leaders have also been requested to make regular declarations of their financial requests. The sentencing hearing for the white supremacists who committed the massive murder in New Zealand in March 2019 has officially started amid heavy security. The killing, in which 51 worshippers were slaughtered at two Christchurch mosques, is considered the most brutal in the country's modern history. 29-year-old Australian Brenton Harrison Tarrant pleaded guilty in March to 51 counts of murder, 40 counts of attempted murder, and 1 count of terrorism, the first terrorism conviction in the nation's history. Tarrant has dismissed his lawyers and intends to represent himself during the 4-day sentencing starting on Monday, raising fears he could try to use the occasion as a platform to promote his racist views. Tarrant could become the first person in New Zealand to be sentenced to life imprisonment without the possibility of parole. Anti-government protests continue in Belarus in the midst of growing concerns over foreign interference. Following the call by opposition leaders for an escalation of the protests, thousands of demonstrators marched to the Independence Square in central Minsk, insisting on their calls for President Alexander Lukashenko to step down. Last week, Russia warned European leaders against interfering in Belarus after it was reported that the protests were being funded by foreign governments and organizations, a fact that protest leaders have also admitted.
All this has been planned and directed by the United States, and the Europeans are playing along. A special center has been created near Warsaw to destabilize the situation in Belarus. We are keeping an eye on it and know what they are doing.
And the annual Russian Military Expo has started in the capital, Moscow. Defense Minister Sergei Shoigu said this year's expo, entitled Army 2020, will be held in 2 parts, a military forum and an international military sports competition. The forum will cover key topics such as IT for the defense industry, military medicine, and also various branches of armed services. The International Army Games will see teams from across the world complete in several dozens of events.
The only thing that is left for me to do is to announce that the International Military Technical Forum and the International Military Games are open.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu announced on Sunday that he has accepted a proposal to extend budget negotiations. The decision effectively prevents another snap election in the country, which would have been the 4th in under 2 years.
I say the whole time that national responsibility demands an immediate injection of money to our economy and avoidance of elections. And therefore, out of national responsibility, I decided this evening to accept the compromise proposal of Knesset member Hauser. This proposal allows for immediate injection of money to the citizens and the economy of Israel. It adverts the need for elections.
And the Sea Watch for Migrants rescue ship has rescued 104 people who were adrift in the southern Mediterranean Sea this weekend. But according to the UN, at least 45 people were missing and presumed dead. The German NGO that operates the vessel also announced that 37 minors were among those rescued, out of which 28 were unaccompanied. This weekend's rescue missions came days after a separate boat carrying dozens of migrants bound for Europe capsized off the coast of Libya. And we've come to the end of this news brief. Remember that you can find these and many other stories at our website at telesurenglish.net. You can also join us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. For Telesur English, I'm Luis de Jesus. Thank you for watching. Follow the most important global events through a comprehensive perspective. With a team of journalists in 25 locations around the world to convey our people's reality. From the South,